Hello and welcome to another episode of Brand Retro. Today I'm pumped to have Spencer Shaw back on the podcast with me, and we're going to talk about AI, podcast, human relationships, and kind of how this whole thing is kind of coming together from a branding perspective. So Spencer, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about your industry, what you're seeing, kind of what the shift is, because as we know, everybody jumped on the AI train. It was riding high there for a while, and I think it's now starting to settle in. It's not that it's going away by any means, but I think the practical usage of who's doing what is starting to figure itself out. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's because it's in people's, like in the masses' fingertips. It's not just like the people that got excited early on, but everyone now has access to it.
Right. And I think, we saw with our clients that it was a shiny new object. Like people were super pumped about it, kind of thinking of all the crazy ways they could utilize it. And I even think that's dying down to some degree, but it's also put us and it's put our agency in the position to now try to make sense of it, because our clients are using it and they're giving us that as deliverables sometimes in ways to work with it. So we have to now try to figure out how to do the best we can with it to get results, to make sure it's still living up to the quality and expectations that they had coming in.
Yeah, I think for me, a dude that loves food, I want to use comparisons of the food world. And first I'll use the language, which is right now we have AI slop. And slop is literally what's getting produced. And if we take this to the food world and use America as context, when Korean barbecue first got to America, even the really bad Korean barbecue, people are like, oh, this is amazing. I love this. And then more of the Korean barbecue came in, or fusion food. And then people are like, I actually know what tastes good and what doesn't. And we're now at the understanding of what our palate is, and some of this is good, some of this is slop. That's the stage that we're at now. So fundamentally, where I think it's changing is that the way that we are as marketers and as consumers, the way we're using search engines is different. Meaning we're going to ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever tool, Perplexity. And we may, in some cases, never leave the tool. We'll get enough information from the platform that we're good, that we might not go to someone's website. The same is happening with podcasts, that now, if we want a baseline information, we might just listen to that AI-generated stuff. It's slop, but we might listen to it because it gives us the, first grade level of education, the base. But there's a fundamental change that's happening beyond that, and that's what we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think sometimes getting the content they want, is slop acceptable? Maybe. It depends on what you want or how bad you want it. But I do think the brands, the companies, the source of that content runs a risk of kind of losing that opportunity to connect. And if they're not aware of that or feeling like that's not important to them, I think that there's a huge gap coming where they're not going to be part of the next phase of this. Because I see it all over social media right now. And, I don't want to say I forecasted it, but I've always kind of thought the major competitor for AI is going to be the human interaction, the relationship, that side of it. And there's value in that, I think, inherently in every situation, but it's whether or not the client or the source of that content, the people who are generating that content, is whether or not they recognize that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it's somebody's gonna have to pick sides and then decide where they want to be in that fight. But I think that's one of the big challenges coming up and how this thing evolves is that's your leverage point in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that I'll put it this way, and I'll actually pick sides. For me, at least, I pick the side of AI. And what I mean is I'm probably more of a 95-5. So I'm a 95% AI, which is I want to use all of my tools. I want to learn as much as I can for those things. And I want to reserve that 5% for the creators and the brands that I really care about. But I think it's important to think of for you, you and I, we talk often, you're into sneakers. I think that a lot of people like could easily geek out on AI generated like info about sneakers and brands and all kinds of really cool stuff. But if you're looking to, connect with a sneakerhead and a person that has skill in the industry and knowledge and hear their stories, you got to go to the source, the real person.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pro AI. Don't get me wrong. I'm pro AI to a point, but there are things that like unboxing those shoes and hit that smell of the new leather, and AI can't do that. And that's something that it's worth something,
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
like
mean,
walking into a mall and smelling Cinnabon. That's just a thing that the AI can't replicate. And
did you
those
just invent?
experiences are huge.
What's interesting is this: the world of like generated videos is more and more generated music, images, all of this stuff, but people still subscribe to Mr. Beast and like the videos that he has or some specific cooking person or whatever it be because the relationship you get the Jordans because there's a smell that you get from that shoe. Like there's something special and it's and Timu, like you're not going to wear a Timu shoe. Like you're going to get like the real deal. You want the real
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So if I'm a brand and I'm somebody that wants to, I mean, clearly I want to adopt AI. I want to leverage it as a tool. I want the automation. I want the intelligence. I want to be able to level up and increase the size of my input or output, whatever. But how do I still get all that and maintain the brand element? I mean, obviously I have my thoughts and opinions, but I'd like to hear yours. When they go deep down that road of AI, it's a rabbit hole and you can get lost in it. So how do you see it playing out as far as brands maintaining their appeal and their human connection in that process?
Yeah, I think that from what I see and what I'm experiencing now is that these stories, I'm going to talk podcast and I'm going to talk brand and a few other things. The stories on a podcast and the stories of the brand have to come out. And every single brand has a unique DNA to it. It just does. It's to go full circle. Early in my career, I did a lot of direct response marketing. And direct response marketing is like the most soulless form of marketing you can imagine. It's like, seriously, like if you just want to bang your head against something, that's what you do. Direct response marketing is like writing really good copy, making an offer, and then like cashing checks. It's boring, it's soulless. It doesn't work as well as it used to. And rarely is there a brand behind a lot of it. And it's shifted now that people are choosing to have a relationship with their brands and with their money. They want it to go somewhere. And so the companies that tell the stories, the companies that go through and share information, the companies that have like their DNA on the line, those are the ones that matter. The thing that I don't know is that a lot of decisions will be made by agents. So agents where no humans interact will be making decisions. So what does that mean? Because agents can't smell the Nikes out of a box, but agents can tell if a brand has something behind it or meaning or the story or all of that. So that's why we have to craft those and put some meaning together right now.
Yeah. So one of the terms I heard just this week is they were talking about the idea of branding becoming, kind of watered down and kind of a meaningless buzzword, so to speak, because it's kind of an overused term, kind of like authenticity. It means different things to different people. And the breakdown was basically that let's reposition the word branding to preference. So instead of branding slash marketing, it's more preference marketing. And then when it comes to analytics, it's more performance marketing, and kind of resegmenting what these different aspects of marketing mean so that people, again, can, kind of wrap their minds around which bucket it is they're talking about. Because right now, the idea of branding to anybody is just, it's your logo, it's your visuals. It's oversimplified to the point where they forget about the experience and the voice and the connection and that part that's hard to replicate using AI. So to your point, and just to explain, agents are basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're basically these worker bees within the AI model that you would create, and these worker bees would perform different tasks on your behalf to obviously manage certain things, to automate certain things, to maybe increase your capacity or your ability to produce a certain amount of work or whatever. But those things would also have to be taught the brand voice, the brand, what matters to the brand, the hierarchy, the core values, all those different things. And as good as those agents could possibly be, they still might not be able to achieve. They could replicate a version of, but they still could not cross the line of human connection. And that, again, that might be a gap some people don't care about, but it might be a deal breaker for some, to where if I'm going to use AI, it's only up to this point, and then that's when it crosses over to the human piece of it. So that said, what are your thoughts on that, and how do you see that playing out? Because right now, I think that's kind of the struggle for people who are advanced in what they're doing in AI. And obviously everybody's at different levels, but for those who are really trying to build out a team of agents, so to speak, that's a bridge they have to cross sooner than later.
Yeah, actually, not to be a contrarian, but I push back on a couple
Right.
of things. I think that you can form a relationship, and I think that nothing is off now. And I'll put it to this level, that the video, so I'm constantly running experiments. I'm spinning up new projects and things like that. So the videos that we create for Meta, wow, they're all AI generated and they feel real. All the images are AI generated. They feel real. Like all of it. So, and people don't know, like they just don't. And we're at that level now where we can do that with everything, and it can run through a model where, I could turn myself into an alien or a girl or, an old man or whatever. I am an old man, but I mean, I could do that and it works. So where I think that things will change is that for product businesses, live shopping will be more important. For all businesses, the founders and we have to know specific brands. What I mean is your $1 billion companies, they're a beast of their own. We're not even playing with that. That doesn't matter. But we're talking $100 million and less. So those types of companies, the founders need to have a voice, and that's them personal, grabbing their phone and talking to the camera. That could be a newsletter or whatever the culture of that is. And then the fingerprint or the DNA of that brand will come through. You've got your outdoor companies, or you've got everyone's kind of got their own their pulse to it. And that has to shine. And we can not fake, but I call it simulate 90% of it with AI. We can get to the level that would have taken years or months in minutes. It's the gap, that last 10%, that is only human.
I think, I agree with you. And I think maybe the lost point that I was trying to make was that it's got to be somewhat curated from the source of the brand or the company so that it's consistent. Because you were talking about soulless marketing, and I think the runaway train of people I want to AI everything. I think moving that fast and not connecting the dots or bringing it back to the purpose of their brand or why it is they're special or why they mean something to somebody else, I think that's the risk of, like, you got to make sure it's in line. Like,
Yeah.
would you agree with that, or where does that make
For,
sense?
for most brands, yes. For some brands, you can still get away with it. So depending on the brand itself, there's certain things you can get away with. Like if you're a tech company, certain products, you can get away with AI
Yeah.
being 100% or 99%. Expert led services, financial advisors, attorneys, people like that. No, like has to be real. For like Janus Motorcycles, like you've done work with them,
Yeah.
they could probably do 90%, but that last 10%, like a person is putting their money into Janus because they're saying, I'm not opposed to Harley, but I'm not a Harley person. I'm not a Triumph person. I'm not an Indian person. I'm a Janus person. And here's why.
Yeah.
And that is 100% a brand decision.
Yeah. And I guess that's what I'm saying too, is that the journey to get there, whether that's the sales process or the social media marketing or even the education aspects, you could AI the hell out of that. And I don't know that anybody's going to judge you differently. But like you said, when I get to the experience line, I want to be able to step over that line and feel whatever that is.
Yeah.
Oh,
I would love to see it. And I think we may get there. Here's where I'm hoping we get. I don't know if we can, and I have no control over this other than hoping that brands do this. And here's my hope is that brands and I want to use Janus as an example. They say, hey, what really matters to us is the people that we do this for, like the people that work at the company and the people that buy our stuff. And so they say things like, hey, once a month, we're going to go do a ride and a barbecue. Or, hey, we're going to do whatever it would be. That is what will make it go from brand to community, like to something that really matters. You're not going to get that with your tax accounting software. That's just like, it doesn't matter. Like, forget about all the branding stuff. Like, you know what? My books are balanced. That's cool. I really don't care. On my motorcycle, I want something.
yeah. Even more broadly speaking, I mean, any industry, you can care about brand and you can be well kept and tight and aesthetically dialed in. I think that applies to any industry. But the service or the reason why people choose you somewhat varies depending on what it is you do or don't do. Or because, like you said, like an accountant, I just want to know you can do what I need you to do and you could do math really well. Yeah. That's all I really care about. So it does matter by industry a little bit as to what you do and what the expectation of the client is. But I think depending on, like you said, what's on their radar and what it is they're trying to do and what they're, because I mean, like take Janus again, for example. You're right. They're trying to sell motorcycles. Like at the end of the day, they're trying to sell motorcycles, but inherent in that is they're trying to build a community. They're trying to throw a little gas on the fire of people who want to just get out there and ride and experience, the wind in their hair and going down the road. So there is a feel-good piece to that, which, yeah, they have to manage that and make sure that's connected in all this. But I agree with you. I think some industries who could really leverage this to just increase their pipe size, I don't know if it matters as much to their end user, but still, like, they just have to put it in their, whatever their plan is as to how they market themselves or how they run their business. But I do think, I don't want to say it matters less, but I think it's less of an issue, put it that way.
Yeah. And maybe I think you're absolutely right where you say it doesn't matter less. It's call it the timeline. So for those like accountants and those brands, it doesn't matter as much right now, mid 2026, but mid 2027, it might. For any of the e-commerce brands, it mattered a year ago. And like, if they don't have it today, like all of their competitors that do, like, are eating their lunch. And so it will matter to everyone except the US government, because like you're forced for that. And then it probably doesn't matter to like your utility companies. But you know, one could argue and say, at some point, are we as households going to give the finger to the utility company and say, I'm going SpaceX Powerwall? I don't know. And that's a brand thing. But the longevity of that, like, it's probably pretty far down.
Yeah. But I'm gonna do a slight pivot on here and just kind of give you an example of what some of the things that I do. Like when I'm watching, whether it's Counts Customs on TV or maybe it's American Pickers or, when I look at these kind of out of the box, separated from AI type scenarios, I wonder like, well, how would like in an AI world, how does this benefit Mike Wolf from American Pickers? How does this, if I'm a car hunting guy and I'm looking for barn finds, or what does that look like? So at first surface level, you're like, well, it doesn't, because they're out there picking in a very simplistic approach. It's hard to connect those dots. But then in the process of sitting down and going, well, I mean, if I was Mike Wolf and I wanted to, I don't know, search information on a company that went on a business in 1938 and really figure out what kind of products, that they sold and where they were distributed and what areas of the country and how that was affected by prohibition. And like when I started to kind of think through it analytically, and I've actually done this in AI and in chat, I've played around with it to have it feed me information is just to see how good is it?
Yeah.
And dude, it's incredible. So
Unreal.
I just did it on a car, I like cars and stuff, and I was looking at another car and I started to feed it my questions about this certain car and how many were produced and where they were distributed, and just kind of see if it could tell me like production numbers or yeah, it was incredible how much information that it pulled. So when I think about even those industries that on paper look like they're a long ways away from, like, why would they use AI? You think creatively enough, there's a reason why you should use it, could use it, and it could get you there a hell of a lot faster from an educational standpoint than you trying to figure it out or digging through, I don't know, old books to try to price things out or whatever it looks like, because it's actually pretty phenomenal. Like I even think about eBay sellers.
Yeah.
Like how many eBay sellers are out there that have been doing it for years, and the research and the time and the effort, the manual effort that they have put into their eBay store to make it go.
Yeah.
Now with a tool like this, God, I would think you could cut that time in half at least. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, I've thought about that. And I want to share that with you, because that was like my journey is like, now when I watch TV or if ever I watch one of these shows, I'm thinking, I wonder how they would apply that. Like, how could they use it, even though it's probably not the norm in their industry? Again, I think if they're creative enough, there's a way. There's a way to leverage it.
I think I would assume that probably a lot of them are. And then to like go full circle with branding and what you do is that, like American Pickers, where I see the relationship is at some point a person's going to say, hey, this item was in episode 101 and like I now have it in my living room, and like that means something to them. And like that's where things are going to go. And they may sell some of those items. Like it may be the TV show and they're like, hey, make sure, you're with us on Whatnot or TikTok Shop or whatever. And they're getting a relationship and they're saying, okay, this item can be in my living room, or, hey, we're going to this town. We'll meet up with a few people, or whatever that looks like. And the AI, the tools can do all the background work. The humans, that won't be replaced if done correctly. Where people mess up is they let the background work be done by humans, and then they don't have the time to do the other human only stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's possible and it's a tool to be leveraged by anybody. And whether you're in marketing, podcasts, finance, again, it probably varies depending where you're at and what you're doing, what industry, but it's a treasure trove of opportunity that whether you're all in on AI or you're straddling the fence, there is benefit there. There is opportunity to leverage, like I said, increase your pipe size, to go faster, to be more broad and more educational, more knowledgeable, whatever it is. Like, I think everybody should at least sit down and consider the idea of how this might improve their business or their kind of their day-to-day, what they do and how they get there.
Yeah. It matters now more than anything. And the title of your podcast, Brand Retro, it's kind of funny. I've got, a teenage son that wants everything that is from like the 90s and the 80s. Like that is just, and I'm like, those shorts are so dumb. And he's like, this is the best. And I'm like, this is wild, because it has meaning to him and his friends. And they grew up with all of this fake stuff. And now it's like, I gotta find the old retro stuff.
Well, that's what's cool about it is, brand retro meant something even when we started the podcast. And for me at the time, it was like tapping into the nostalgia, that feeling, that vibe, that excitement that you had when you first started your brand or your company or whatever it was, which I still think is valid and it's true. But it has, now that the podcast has been around a few years, I think it has also evolved into, how culture is caught up with it, how now there's more, retro inspired podcasts out there. Like you said, kids and collectors are, trying to chase down those vintage t-shirts, those Air Jordans, those retro BMX bikes. And I think there's a niche and there's a charm to what life was like back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, because people are looking back at that as a fonder time and they're carrying that forward. And it's going to be interesting to see how this wave of nostalgia and this retro vibe is going to intersect with the usage of AI. And I think to a point, you kind of mentioned it, but like, you're seeing it with online shopping, you're seeing it with live shopping on Whatnot, you're seeing it with, there's kind of a surge in the comic book industry right now where they're becoming more relevant again and they're worth something. So like, I remember kids back in, my day were like, they were building up comic book collections because they thought it was going to be their retirement plan.
Yeah.
And then the market did what it did and it kind of crashed, in the 2000s, and people were depleting their collections because they weren't worth anything. Now it's coming back, which is nuts, because it's just crazy how nostalgia is that powerful, where it's definitely carved its place. But now again, how do you leverage it? How do you use it? How do you tap into it to benefit and kind of have that feeling again? And I think the intersection of technology, AI, and nostalgia is going to be an interesting thing here in the next, I don't know how long it's going to take, but call it in the next couple of years. I think it's going to be phenomenal to watch.
Absolutely. I think you were early naming the podcast this and doing this stuff.
Early or lucky, either way.
You know what? That comes with great skill. So yeah. No, it was the fun conversation. I'm sure this won't be actually, I'm not going to say that. I hope this isn't our last of it. So I'll put myself on good manners to be invited back at some point if that happens.
No, we'll do it again, and we will, we'll put all the links and everything in the show notes, and we'll continue the conversation. We've had a lot of conversation in the last, I'd say 3 or 4 episodes about the idea of nostalgia and the kind of the power of brand. So it's kind of a running theme for us right now. So appreciate you being on the podcast and having the chat with me.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.